catching the right source. Swap that. Be set. There we go. Alright, now give me a second. I have to rework this. That's what it's like behind the scenes, guys. It's like this is what I do behind the scenes. It's not clean, not pretty. It's often just frustrating. It's good cover art. It's the cover art for the Super Famicom original. Like, despite us playing the PlayStation remake, we're using the cover art for the Super Famicom original for the side art because it's just better art, I think. Yeah, no problem. Of course it's right. I did download it, but it's fucking AFIF bullshit format, and you know it. Second. Just bear with me a second, guys. It looks nice. Nope. Really, is nothing gonna happen? Excellent. Good dude. Awesome. That looks actually quite nice that way. And if I'd come into stream with a setup, you wouldn't have noticed it. But this is how I do these side panels. Just about not having like black bars on the side, something more enjoyable. It's a nice art piece, I like it. What's this? I want to keep that. Tulip. Make another one. And we have a scene. Perfect. You didn't see nothing. Like 10 minutes to set up. So, you know what? Actually, let's see about programming the mouse for that. Station back. Game supported the mouse. Although if I'm doing this, I will actually have to have the full screen. Awesome. The wonders of technology. I can emulate PlayStation using an actual mouse. You forget the PlayStation had a mouse. It was a very simple mouse. 2 buttons, no scroll wheel or anything. But Clock Tower was a point and click game. I'll probably never use this for anything else. Because like one of the point and click games either on PlayStation that aren't on other systems. Because oh yeah, no, I'll play Broken Sword like this? No. I'll play it on PC. Man and Conquer, I'll play it on PC. The Super Nintendo did have a mouse. I don't know if this game supported it. But it is required for stuff like Mario Paint. So yeah, like actual mouse control. So I can have this hand free to do whatever. Probably most would just be like this. I don't know what those mean. So, Clock Tower, the scariest game on Super Nintendo. Raised in the Granite Orphanage, Jennifer and her friends were unexpectedly wanted as adopted daughters, which is weird because they're all like 15 in September of that year. Wanted. Laura, hurry up, we need to get there before it gets dark. Miss Mary. What kind of house will we be living in soon? That's the 5th time this evening. You don't need to worry though, it's a gorgeous mansion. I'm not going to voice all these characters. Broken Sword 2 advertisers. Yeah, I had the PlayStation mouse and I recall playing Broken Sword 1 with it as a kid. They need an adult. Don't worry, Miss Mary is an adult. Yeah, the scariest game on Super Nintendo, or Super Famicom, I guess, because this wasn't really... As far as I'm aware, this game has never been released outside Japan. The sequel was on PlayStation, so when Americans think of Clock Tower, they're probably thinking of the game released in the US as just Clock Tower, which is the second Clock Tower game. Mary is an idiot. What a mansion! Miss Mary, why don't you make any sound when you're walking? This is actually really nice, smooth mouse control. I'm very impressed. So one thing that this game is really good about is reloading when you die. It has a very robust continue system, which is really good. Somehow, I'm still alive. That's probably better. I feel like they redid some of this character art from the Super Nintendo version. I don't know what the right mouse button does. So this is our main character, Jennifer. You may have noticed she looks a lot like Jennifer. Yeah, the right mouse button. You know, a mouse has two things. I'm gonna come over there, Clement, and smack you. No, that's fine. I'll go do it. Knowing how these things work, I'll either be the first to die or I'll be the survivor, so I'll go do it. Why does it keep getting stuck there? I remember this not being automated in the Super Famicom version. Here's some suspicious gunfire. Now it's their time to disappear. What's going on? Guys? Oh, but Clem, you're not going to find out what happens. You take care of yourself, Clem. Thanks for popping in, man. The mouse keeps getting stuck on stuff. What's going on with that? Am I going to have to just switch to the controller? Man with scissors kills everybody. Not everybody. You take care, Clem. Yeah, like I say, you might have noticed that Jennifer looks a lot like Jennifer. Which is like one of the most on-the-nose things I've ever seen in a game like this. It's like how in the 80s, like, NES cover arts were very clearly taken from 80s action movies. Like, the cover of Metal Gear for the NES is clearly just Michael Biehn. Seriously, what? Alright. Well, we're switching back to the controller because the mouse station just doing it right. Murder? Murder? Okay, why can't I move the mouse cursor to the left or the right? What the fuck is going on? There we go. Yeah, like on the NES, where like the cover of Metal Gear is clearly just Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese in Terminator, or the cover for Contra is clearly Schwarzenegger in Predator and another guy, and I can't remember who the second guy is. Like that's clearly Jennifer Connelly. Oh, that's concerning. It is probably better to play this with a controller because I'll have more control over like actually moving, like running. I've got to be very careful with the running though. So if you know how to do OG Clock Tower, it's doable in like 2 hours. I don't. So there's a few different versions of OG Clock Tower. A couple of them are kind of interesting. Turns out this got a Windows 95 release, which is kind of interesting. But the most interesting release of this is there was a port of it to the WonderSwan, which is a Japanese-only console by Bandai. Japanese-only handheld console by Bandai. Created by Gunpei Yokoi, the creator of the Game Boy. And, like, the original WonderSwan didn't have color or anything. So, like, they ported this to that. And, like, it's actually a really good port. Really interesting. So, if we're supposed to live in this mansion, why is it just falling apart? I think that's a very relevant question. Hmm. So I'm gonna let you guys decide here in a minute. Let's turn them on. You know, the light switch in most houses is by the door. There we go. I'll just watch TV until everybody comes back. Mom, mirror, the painting's leaking blood again. Blood? Hope it's not Chris's blood. You remember when rooms in the home used to not be all focused, like pointed towards the TV? When the TV was just like an additional decoration that you'd sometimes look at? Man, those were crazy times. Man, that did nothing to warrant those scare chords. Oh, hey, a bird. Hello, bird. So if we leave that parrot flying around, it will actually kill us. Dick. There's a blanket. There's definitely not a bird in there. Don't worry about it. Making my way downtown, walking fast. Faces passing. So I'm gonna leave this up to you guys now. Do we check that out or do we ignore it? This is good. This is a good piece. Check it out. Bane says check it out. We're checking it out. What's the worst that could happen? Oh, the water's working. That dripping sound coming from the toilet? So the appearance of this fog over the screen, I think it looks different in the Super Famicom version. I think it looks more like it might be steam from the shower, possibly. I could be wrong. But here it just looks like deliberately eerie. Alright. Can't you give me your love? I have to give myself one more chance to be the man that I know I am. Run, Jennifer. Open the door, Jennifer. Jennifer. So that's our introduction to Scissorman. Again, I just calmly walk away. Walk, Jennifer. Okay. So running will reduce Jennifer's state, which is what the colour around her portrait is. Ideally, you want Jennifer to run as little as possible. When her state is, like, blue or green, she's got a good chance of fighting Scissorman off. In red, if we get caught by Scissorman, we're probably gonna die. Well, that's concerning. Or fall over. Still around? So Clock Tower, this Clock Tower is the first in the Clock Tower series. The last entry named Clock Tower was Clock Tower 3, which is a very different game from the previous ones. Although, to be fair, if you want to count Clock Tower as a series just because of continuing ideas, there's really only 2 games in the series. This one and the game released as Clock Tower on the PlayStation. Clock Tower 2, The Struggle Within, is completely different and doesn't follow any of the conventions or ideas or themes of the first 2 games. This is probably a death. Get him! It does pretty good with its music, like, definitely gotta give it that. Well, like I say, it has a very robust continue system. But yeah, Clock Tower 2, The Struggle Within, which was released in Japan as Clock Tower Ghost Head. Yeah, Death Cowl wouldn't be a bad idea. Keep it in mind for me for a second, Ben. This game doesn't actually have a pause. Jennifer, stop. Stop, Jennifer. Right, death counter is active. Currently sitting at 1. So yeah, Clock Tower 2, The Struggle Within, was released as Clock Tower Ghost Head in Japan, and is basically completely unconnected to the rest of the series. That was the last game done by Human Entertainment in the series. The IP was bought by Capcom after that, who made Clock Tower 3, which again, completely different. Cool, how do I get down now, Jennifer? Good word, Jennifer, I'm proud of you. And then, like, after Clock Tower 3, Capcom did Haunting Ground, which is technically a spin-off. But it's also like the last game to follow this kind of idea. There was a spiritual successor that was kickstarted. Nightcry, I think it was called. So you press this twice or 3 times, and like you do actually get to get out with the car. There we go. So yeah, there was a spiritual successor called Nightcry that I think was funded on Kickstarter. I don't know how well it did. I never ended up getting it. I know we got a Vita version. And like that's the Clock Tower series. Like, as far as I'm aware, it's loved by the people who have played it, but it's not very well known. Like, even now. It's kind of a weird thing. I think that, I think Haunting Ground is probably better known than the Clock Tower series. Just that one game. Oh, you've played Nightcry Magic? So yeah, that's a non-standard game over. I think it counts as an... Oh, you've seen Bark players, fair enough. I think it counts as one of the endings. So yeah, Nightcry is like a follow-up idea to this. Ending H. So that doesn't count as a death, it's an ending. Going on with Dugstick. Yeah, it wasn't very well received. It doesn't surprise me. It's not an idea that would go super well, or really an idea that would age well. It's an interesting curiosity of its time, and the main reason this game holds any kind of value is because of its robust, quick start and continue system. Traps is a horror theme game. I mean, I guess I'd count like the entire Deception series as a horror theme game. So we're going to quick start this time. And what quick start does is it gets us into the intro, skipping all of the opening. So we're at the point now, everybody's already disappeared. So we can just get straight to the game. Which, like, this kind of idea, especially for the time this game came out, which was like 95, baby. Like, really good. There are games that would come out 20 years after this that would be like, no, you've got to play through our slow, dull opening. Like Resident Evil 3 Remake. Once they wanted to replay that, play through the slow, scripted opening that takes speedrunners like 7 minutes to do. Every time you want to replay that game. And this game's like, hey, here's a button to just skip the opening. So what we're going to do this time is we're not going to investigate the bathroom. Not investigating the bathroom is probably the worst thing to do. Because it doesn't mean you get to avoid Scissor Man. What it means is one of your other friends dies, and now Scissor Man is right in front of you. So you've got to run back. Why does it sound like he's to my right? Why is he to my right? So we didn't find anything downstairs, so let's go upstairs. Jennifer, stop running. But yeah, I'd probably count like the entire Deception series, Bane. You want to talk about games like you had at the time that were really interesting that you would never be able to get into these days? I had the original Deception as a kid, which in Europe was called Devil's Deception. Like, I always know it as Tecmo's Deception Invitation to Darkness because it's the American name, it's the one that's most prevalent on the internet. But in Europe, it was called Devil's Deception. And I had it as a kid, and it surprised me even at the time of like a game where you're clearly the villain working to resurrect the devil by sacrificing people to them. And like, I'd never played anything like that before. You know, it's actually a really good suggestion, Bane, one of the Deception games. That could be an ongoing series, just doing the Deception games. Not the first one. I have no interest in playing through all of the first one, because it gets really tedious. Try again, Jennifer. We can try again, Jennifer. But yeah, I've been like a big advocate of Deception 4 for years now. Because like it was the most. Thank you, Ben. You know, that's actually a really good coincidence that plays when you do Death Club. But yeah, Deception 4 was like the most accessible of them because it was on PS3. Deception 4 Blood Ties. Yeah, that's really good. A really good coincidence. It's no good. Can't do it. Fuck off, Bobby. That's another one. Yeah, Deception 4 Blood Ties was on PS3 and Vita. And like, I got it on Vita, and it's rough, but it's a fun game. And then they released like the director's cut version with an extra scenario, The Nightmare Princess, on PS4 and Vita. Like, if you haven't played it, I recommend checking it out, because it's a fun game, and you get a lot. You get two scenarios with it, the original Blood Ties campaign and the Nightmare Princess scenario. You know, Jennifer, if you would stop running... Shit. Yeah, it must be. I think we're just in panic mode. Yeah, if you have any interest in any of those games, I recommend trying Deception 4. It's on PS4, which means it's backwards compatible on PS5. It's on Vita if you have one of those, if you're one of the 5 people that has one. I found the button to make us stop at least. I love my Vita. It's a really good system. I recommend it. I haven't played Trapped. I'm aware of it. But I recommend Deception 4. I want to do it on stream for a while, actually. Hey, Amanda. Not here. It's I lost though. My Vita is up in the top shelf with my other handhelds that I'm not currently using because I'm using my RG350 again, my 350p. It's just got a really nice form factor. It's comfortable, it's not too big. It's good stuff. Yes, I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. I feel like I told you about something else that you didn't go for. Guitaru Man. I told you about Guitaru Man, which I don't think you went for. That was before I did the that full playthrough of Guitaru Man Lives. That was before CX was charging ridiculous prices for everything on PS2. It's fair enough, I hadn't played it yet. The PSP Go, I love my PSP Go. Like, before I started doing emulation handhelds, the PSP Go was like the best portable system. For its form factor, it's so compact. And like the PSP can just natively do PS1 games, which was fantastic. And then there's PSP games, and it has the pause game feature, which is really nice. It's like cool suspense states. Get to the door, get to the door. There's an interesting thing though, My Life in Gaming, which is a really good YouTube channel for looking into playing old games and old consoles on modern displays in like the best visual quality you can get. They did like a really deep dive into like the best way to display a PlayStation 1 on modern TVs. And what they found was like one of the simplest and best looking ways to put PS1 games on a modern TV is to connect a PSP Go to it. Was that modern or was that like old TVs? It might have been CRTs, but like the aspect ratio for it was perfect. Bird's gonna fucking knock on me. So this is going to be a death, but it's a unique death. Oh, it's not a death. Alright. Yeah, I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen the video, but like, they found whatever it was that displayed on might have been an old CRT TV. But like, the PSP Go through component cables had like perfect pixel density and everything, and it was honestly kind of astonishing. But yeah, the PSP Go is a great little device before its time. Because like, when it came out in like 2010, who had a digital library? I didn't. But now, like, so many PSP games are more easily available digitally. and the PSP Go is now fully hackable. And there's also that custom mod that someone came up with to expand the memory for it, which isn't that difficult. I ended up doing it on mine. So like the PSP Go is still now like a really good option for a handheld portable system, and the PSP has always been a really good handheld emulator. Like until the last few years, when these more recent handheld emulators started coming out, the PSP, like for maybe 10 years or so, was the best. Thank you, Dave. Was like the best and cheapest handheld emulator you could get. Like value for money, the best. Now the PSPs are jumping up in price and these retro handhelds are less expensive than they used to be. Just run to the garage, I know I'll lose him there. Yeah, I love handhelds. One of my biggest disappointments with handhelds, aside from the fact that they're basically dead as a mainstream thing, it's the size of them. Like, acceptable handheld size has become so goddamn big. I remember when people were talking about how the Game Gear was really bulky or the Atari Lynx was huge. And it's like, you look at something like the Steam Deck now, and the Steam Deck's like, yeah, no, it's a handheld PC, and it's great. And it's like, yeah, but it's also huge. And I get there's not really a real way to make that kind of thing any smaller and keep the same amount of power, battery life and such, like, doable in it. But it's also huge. And then the Switch is also really big. I used to think the Vita was a big handheld system. But, like, it's so much smaller than the Switch. And it's like, if I didn't have my Switch Lite... oh, absolutely. Clamshell design. It's something I'm sad that everyone's moved away from. The foldable clamshell design, which reduced the pocket size and kept the screen safe. I'm so disappointed that nobody really does that anymore. Like, if I hadn't picked up a Switch Lite, my thing for more modern gaming on the go would definitely still be the Vita. Like, if I wanted to play Final Fantasy X on the go. Yeah, I think I've gone past it. Yeah, if I wanted to play Final Fantasy X on the go, if I didn't have the Switch Lite, I would do it on the Vita. But even then, the Vita is still, like, size-wise, so much more convenient than the Switch Lite is. If you haven't seen it, I recommend looking up comparison shots. Because you see, there's a few subreddits I follow. Like, particularly for handhelds. And like every now and then someone will post a picture of their handheld collection. And it's like, oh, there's the Steam Deck on the top, and then it goes through like all the others, the Switch Lite, sometimes some emulator handhelds like the Odin, the Retroid Pocket 2. Now you're seeing a bunch more Retro Pocket 3s. The RG553, the RG350M, the RG351MP. Then there's like the 3DS XL, the new 2DS XL, 3DS, DS Lite, DS, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy. Like going back all these ways, and like it really makes it apparent just how huge modern handhelds are. Hey, Dibs. How you doing, buddy? I keep forgetting which doors are locked. Is this phone upstairs? Yeah, like modern handhelds, they're just too big to be reasonable. One that I do have while we're just walking the stairs, more convenient. Like if I really want pocket on the go games, I have my RG280V here, which is really nice, like very pocketable. Here's my hand. And like this baby will emulate up to PlayStation. My last playthrough of Chrono Trigger was on there, doing the Super Nintendo version. And like it's really nice. And it's the kind of thing I'm after from more handheld game, portable handhelds. Like something that fits into your pocket rather than your bag. I don't recall seeing a phone up here. That's definitely to my right. But yeah, the smaller handhelds are just they're kind of gone now. It's really sad. Now it's on my left. I'm glad I put the sound on stereo. Set. Yeah, it's probably going to be useful later. Never know when you'll need rope. Hmm. Empty. Just when you push it, Jennifer. There we go. Alright, so what's back here? Black robe. Hmm. Oh, we're getting somewhere. Oh, let's get out of it. But yeah, the Deception series in general is a good call, Bane. Not something I would have ended up thinking of myself for Horrorween. I'll have to think, like, how far back I want to go with that series. I don't want to start with Deception Invitation to Darkness. Like Kagero Deception 2, maybe? I should try that a little off stream. See how playable it is. What is this? Tecmo's Deception Invitation to Darkness, Kagero 2, Kagero Deception 2, Deception 3 Dark Delusion, Trapped, which I think in Japan is called Kagero 2. It's a weird one. Then Deception 4 Blood Ties and Deception 4 The Nightmare Princess. But Nightmare Princess comes with the Blood Ties campaign anyway. So it's not a big deal. Yeah, it's definitely coming from my right. You've missed 2 murders, Ninja. It's not on that table. It's okay, though. We reset the game, so only one of them's happened. How is on my right again? I don't know, Ninja. Sounds kind of shady to me. Yes. Yes, it is. Oh no, Bane's counting how many times I've died. Where is this goddamn phone? So it's got to be in that room. Because I can only hear the ringing in that room. I mean, come on, Ninja. We don't have to set you up at all. You do it yourself. You walk into these things, Ninja. Where's this goddamn phone? Yeah, there's been a delightful accident in what happens, because we're using the death counter again, Bane's suggestion, and there's been a delightful accident in regards to what happens with it. And now that we've said that, I'm not going to die for the rest of the playthrough. And Ninja's never going to get to see it. Hmm. I wonder if the reason this game never got released outside Japan is because they basically just ripped off Jennifer Connelly's likeness. Hmm. Use the insecticide, Jennifer. What good is the insecticide if you're not going to use it? Hmm. Alright, they've all gone back in there. So I'm going to have to find a way to use the insecticide to deal with that. Leg of ham. Some ham. That's not a calendar. That's a door. The calendar has a separate icon. Cool. What is this? Well, I got some ham. Now figure out what we do with any of this. Based on everywhere we've been, I have no idea of like what I need to do. I mean, I'd be more likely to just hit the dude with the ham. But then, like, Scissorman, unless Scissorman sneaks up on you somehow, I feel like he's not really that believable as a serial killer. Because it's like a dude who is like 3 foot. Kick him in the head. Fucking phone. I feel like the phone will give me some kind of answer if I can find it. This goddamn phone. Till that day, we wander. I'm walking 1 foot in front of the other. Oh god, you're right. We never did find that phone yesterday either. Like, we just ended up finishing that world. We can only hear it in this room. Is a personality trait of yours that you're a dick? Again, like, just can't hear that phone when we leave the room. Let's just go back to the entrance. Let's see what that was, because, like, it's something. Is it gone? Oh, I didn't get the sharp rock, did I? That sharp rock just not there now? Or is that... I don't know anymore. Hmm. Just like eternal disapproval. Enjoying the stream? Why? Nothing's happening. You've played Eternal Darkness, now play Eternal Disappointment. I mean, yeah, you're right, that is the sequel to Eternal Darkness. I mean, Dennis Dyack kept trying to get a spiritual successor to Eternal Darkness kickstarted, and it just never got off the ground. Like, every time he tried to do it on Kickstarter, it would not get funded, which is crazy. Just turn the TV off. Like, oh no, scary messages, turn the TV off. Kotaku did a really interesting expose into Silicon Knights a few years ago. Like, the big success they had, particularly with Eternal Darkness. Like from Blood Omen to Eternal Darkness to Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes to their downfall with Two Human and X-Men Destiny. And it was really interesting. And like they're credited with making Eternal Darkness and like, oh yeah, it's such a really interesting, unique horror. And it's really good. And it's like it turns out that the reason Eternal Darkness turned out as well as it did is because Nintendo was very hands-on with development. Because Silicon Knights had a really bad habit of procrastinating and not actually doing the work they were being paid for. Like, they put out Eternal Darkness. And then kind of coasted on the reputation from that for like the rest of their existence. That bird will kill you. Like, if you don't do something about that bird, it will kill you. Yeah, I didn't think she was that ugly. But yeah, they coasted by on the reputation for Eternal Darkness for like the rest of their existence. Well, you say that, but like Konami never really did that. Like Silent Hill 3 was a very different kind of game to 2, and then Silent Hill 4 arguably more so. And then Konami stopped developing Silent Hill games internally. Kept handing them off to Western developers who were trying to replicate Silent Hill 2. Meanwhile, Konami was doing other stuff, mostly just Metal Gear Solid and Pro Evolution Soccer, but they were doing other stuff. Silicon Knights, on the other hand, they did. We'll check that out, Jennifer. They did Eternal Darkness, which Nintendo was very hands-on with. And then they did the Metal Gear Solid remake, which most of the work for that was already pre-designed. Like, the layout of the game was just Metal Gear Solid 1. The gameplay conventions were just Metal Gear Solid 2. All they had to do was take those two ingredients and make it work on GameCube, and that's what they did. And then the next game they put out, the Dennis Diak's magnum opus idea, Too Human, which was originally being developed for the PlayStation, was then transferred to the GameCube, and finally actually came out on Xbox 360. This techno, sci-fi, cyberpunk kind of thing, reinterpretation of Norse mythology. And, like, maybe I'll do Too Human one day. It's backwards compatible on Xbox One, and Microsoft gave it away for free. So I've got it. Like, that came out, and it was supposed to be the first of an epic trilogy, and it sold like shit, because it's not good. And then the last game they put out, X-Men Destiny. Like, the expose was very interesting about that particular development. First of an epic trilogy, yeah. Because every time anybody says anything like that, it never works out. Like, I love Beyond Good and Evil, and it was supposed to be, from what I'm aware, the first of a trilogy. Didn't sell well. And now Beyond Good and Evil 2 is supposed to be a prequel and has also been in development in some form or another. But, like, I think at this point, over 15 years. Swing off the roof. Yeah, X-Men Destiny. Activision contracted Silicon Knights to create, because Activision had the rights, had the license for, like, most of Marvel's lineup. And, like, almost every Marvel game for 20 years was published by Activision. So, Activision contracts Silicon Knights to develop X-Men Destiny, which is touted as this, like, in-depth, innovative X-Men RPG, where all of your choices are going to matter, because every time somebody says that, like, that's just never ended up being true. Yeah, Quantic Dream says it in every game they put out, and, like, it never actually matters. Telltale said it about the Walking Dead game, all of your choices will matter, and then they didn't. BioWare had a really hard time with it when it was like, all of your choices in Mass Effect are gonna matter, and then they started making Mass Effect 2 and were like, shit, how do we make all of those choices matter? And in the end, most of them didn't. Yeah, X-Men Destiny. And, like, the story of that is fascinating. Because, like, it factors into the Shadow of the Eternals, Eternal Darkness spiritual successor. Silicon Knights, at this point, like, it's a thing, like, they procrastinate like hell on game development and don't really do a lot of work. Nintendo were very hands-on with them with Eternal Darkness, which is why they got done. Potentially, they were hands-on with them with Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, because that was published by Nintendo. But, like, once that's gone, this X-Men RPG is in development for a long time, and it seems like nothing's getting done. Activision keeps asking for updates, and Silicon Knights keeps blowing them off. Eventually, because like Activision's paying them to develop this game, eventually Activision gets sick of it and announces X-Men Destiny with a trailer that very much puts Silicon Knight's name front and center of that. Like, yeah, X-Men Destiny developed by Silicon Knights. And at this point, Silicon Knights are fucking panicking because their name is now all over this publicly. And they've got very little work done. And it turns out Dennis Dyack has been taking development resources and staff members from it to use to create a demo, a proof of concept demo for the Shadow of the Eternals, Eternal Darkness spiritual successor. So all of a sudden, Activision has thrown them into the fire, which at this point it's been like 2 years, and Silicon Knights has put out basically fucking nothing. So Activision, like, by my estimate, entirely within the right to be demanding what they've been paying for. So they start panicking and scrambling and try and put something out, and there's a release date in this trailer, and they've got to be ready for that. And like, there's various other parts to this story. Like, the expose is really worth a read if you want like more details. Where's this fucking phone? X-Men Destiny does eventually come out. And it is nothing like what it was been promised. It is a bland and boring beat-em-up where it has upgrade elements, which is the most RPG you get out of it. You choose from one of 3 pre-made characters. You don't get to create your character, as was promised. The only choice that matters is one near the end of the game, where you choose to side with the X-Men or the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And it's a mess. It's buggy, it's unfinished, clearly. It doesn't work very well. Nobody's happy with it. It reviews poorly, it sells poorly. Activision terminates any continuation of contract with Silicon Knights. And you'd think, well, after that, and chances are like Activision wouldn't have been quiet about this in the industry, that's probably what sunk Silicon Knights. It's actually not. Because that story gets weirder. Epic Games sues Silicon Knights. Was it? No. Silicon Knights sues Epic Games for withholding tech and support for Unreal Engine 3, which is what 2 Human and X-Men Destiny were developed on. Epic countersues, alleging that Silicon Knights stole proprietary code from the Unreal 3 engine and has been using it in the products they've been building. This jumbles around in court for a while, and eventually the courts find in favour of Epic. Because it's found that, yeah, no, they absolutely just straight up stole code from Unreal Engine 3. To the point where it was clearly copy and pasted. You can still find the exact code from Unreal 3. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So Epic wins that lawsuit, and Silicon Knights is ordered by the court to, under their own money, retrieve all unsold copies of 2 Human and X-Men Destiny and destroy them. this is what sinks Silicon Knights, because this costs them a lot. And I don't think they ever actually did it fully. It's not hard to find 2 Human or X-Men Destiny. I own a physical copy of X-Men Destiny. And again, while this is all going on, Dennis Dyack tries again to build interest for an Eternal Darkness spiritual successor on Kickstarter, which again doesn't raise anywhere near enough money. Which is still the surprising thing to me, because everybody loves Eternal Darkness. Like, it's one of the cult classics of horror video games. Its word of mouth reputation is so good. And this just did not. I think it made like 40 grand. Like, not even respectable money for a Kickstarter. And so Silicon Knights bites the dust. That's how the company that developed Blood Omen, Eternal Darkness, and Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes dies. Just like that. Dennis Dyack, of course, suffers basically no fallout from this. Goes on to be hired in a pretty high up position at another game company. And keeps trying to sell people on this idea of an Eternal Darkness spiritual successor. Which, like, it's been years at this point and nobody has bought it. Which is fascinating, because, like, all these spiritual successors that were on Kickstarter of, like, much beloved old games. Like, Mighty Number 9. And regardless of the end product, Mighty Number 9 made a lot of money. Bloodstained, spiritual successor to Castlevania, made a lot of money. Shenmue 3 made a lot of money. Unsung Story, which was supposed to be a spiritual successor to spiritual successor to Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. And like they made a big deal of Yuzumi Matsuno was going to be involved. There we go. God damn. That could have been clearer on how to do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go and try this key on everything now. And like the Unsung Story Kickstarter is a whole different tale for another time. Supposedly had Yuzumi Matsuno involved, the writer and director of the Final Fantasy Tactics series, the Tactics Ogre series. Originally the director of FF12, like the brain behind the Evilous Alliance. Like, that made a lot of money. Like, people were after. This key just not in there. Will I just be able to use this key on the right door? Oh, there we go. Like, people were after, like, revivals of these old things. I think King's Quest might have been put on Kickstarter. Oh, Miss Mary. Well, she's the one who brought us all here. Oh, you hungry? Good thing I've got this pork. or ham. Please don't eat me. Thanks, man. Oh, hey, look. You're still alive. Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, I think she's got a gun. Hmm. Alright. Bitch shot me. Thanks, Ben. Hmm. What was his name? Something about Unsung Story. Yeah, like all these other Kickstarters, I think Kingsfield. I know Kingsfield. King's Quest. Might have got backed on Kickstarter. I might be wrong about that. King's Quest reboot. Fucking Clock Tower spiritual successor. made more on Kickstarter than an Eternal Darkness Kickstarter. Eternal Darkness spiritual successor. Which, like, it's kind of the funny thing of, like, nobody was, like, so few people were willing to back this. Crazy. Yeah, that's the story of the death of Silicon Knights. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Bitch. Yeah, Broken Sword 5 was backed on Kickstarter. A bunch of Double Fine stuff was backed on Kickstarter. Broken Age. Like, people were so down for retro revivals and continuations of old ideas from everything except this. And it's like, god damn. I need to do Thimbleweed Park. I watched the trailer for it and it looked so appealing. I think we've been over this before. It's on the schedule. It was on Xbox Game Pass. I watched the trailer for it. I was like, this looks pretty good. I'm very interested. Picked it up on Game Pass. Didn't play it before it came off Game Pass, so I just bought it on Switch. And now it's just one of those mini games that's just kind of sat there on my Switch. Well, I put it on the schedule. I do want to do it. Like, X-Files meets Monkey Island. I'm down for that. Like, so many people. I think, was Tesla Effect a Kickstarter thing? Like the Tex Murphy FMV game? I don't know about Beyond Steel Sky. It's possible that, like, these companies could have gotten funding for this stuff now because it's been proven people will buy it. Fucking phone. Like, Revolution could have gone up to a publisher and said, hey, we backed a new entry in our beloved adventure game series on Kickstarter. Like, we put it on Kickstarter, sold really well. People backed it like crazy, and then we released it and it sold well, it reviewed well, people were down for it. How about you fund a revival of a sequel to another classic adventure game we've got? Like, they could have taken that idea to a publisher and it would have absolutely been funded. But Revolution still counted as, like, an independent studio, so who knows? They could have funded it themselves entirely, I'm not sure. I've got Tesla Effect, and I'd like to play it at some point. Like, I've been wanting to do some of those FMV games for a while anyway. Like, I might have mentioned it before, but like, I've got the Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker on Switch, and I've been wanting to do that for a long time. But the main thing that's kept me from doing it is I'll need to hook up a keyboard to my Switch, and I've just been lazy about it. But like, I've got Tesla Effect. I've got a couple of FMV games on Switch. I've got Light Shift on Switch as well. I have Her Story on Steam. I've had that for years. I don't remember when I bought it. But like, that was critically acclaimed. That could be a fun thing. Like, just do a little block of FMV games. If the old Tex Murphy games weren't such a bitch to play, it's not like they're a pain to run these days, because GOG's got them pretty much covered. And like, I'd love to do Under a Killing Moon. But like, playing them is... they're old point-and-click games. Like, old adventure games. With all the trappings of such. Which means, like, if you're gonna do it, have a guide handy, but also mandatory arcade sequences. Which, like, even with a guide, it's the kind of reason why I will not play something like the old Space Quest games, or the old King's Quest games, or, like, a lot of the old Sierra stuff. Because the mandatory arcade sequences that would control horribly and be a completely different style of gameplay. But you would have to finish them. You'd have to complete them if you wanted to continue the game. There it is. God damn. Looking for this phone for like an hour. Oh, cool. I got another key. What? Then why is it ringing, Jennifer? Answer the phone. Hey, how you doing, Snowlock? So that's the girl that was in the bath the first time. Yeah, I've been mentioning Jennifer Connelly and nobody's been talking about it. At least the phone stopped ringing. Let's turn off the lights when you leave a room. Save electricity. Okay, fuck off. I don't think it is based on a film with her in it. I think it's just like, yeah, no, they took her likeness. But I don't think it was an authorized thing. Jennifer, if you would just answer the phone, I would feel so much better. Same with Resident Evil. Well, we already got one ending, Ninja, which was us taking the car that's in the back and just leaving. The issue with that ending is Scissorman turns out to be in the back seat and kills you. Alright, let's see what's over here. You should take the book, Jennifer. Yeah, I was down for this music, but it's like 4 notes just repeated. Alright, let's just leave. I feel like this accomplished nothing. Seriously, what's the point of that room? Nothing to gather in there. It's behind a locked door. So what was the point of it? Alright, let's go back out this way. Okay, so we came in through that door. So tired of walking. Right, so that one's definitely still locked. Am I missing something from outside? There's nothing in here. I feel like we're accomplishing nothing. Sit down, Jennifer, goddamn. I feel like this is a game we're not going to do a session too of. We'll sit down on the grass, but you'll sit down on the concrete. It's too obscure. Ninja, you act like you've never watched this stream before. Obscurity has nothing to do with us not playing it. No, fuck off. Nah, you're fine. I mean, you were here for Koudelka and we kept playing that. Up and at 'em. You think about how it's been like a while since we've seen Scissorman. Yeah, why not? We'll say Teak was Scissorman the entire time. Teak's really short, right? Yeah, I think it's just gonna have to be it for this game, or I'm gonna end up using a guide to get through the rest of it. There was Teak in the mansion with the scissors. Ugh. No, apparently he's at TwitchCon, and judging by his pictures, he's like the only person there. I want to throw a bonus game in here into Horrorween to make up for Clock Tower. Yeah! Thanks, Ben. Go to TwitchCon, they said. It won't be like DashCon, they said. I mean, knowing Teak, you can probably mark it under, like, job expenses. And, like, if my job was paying for it, I'd go to TwitchCon. You know what? Real quick, what we're going to do, just to make this more interesting so we don't end on a downer. take a look at the clock tower the West did. This clock tower is a sequel. This is Clock Tower 2. Not released in the West as Clock Tower 2, but it's the second Clock Tower game. So that happened in Clock Tower. And it's also weird that that's the only thing.
With a knife?
It's weird that's the only part of the first Clock Tower game they show you.
With a giant pair of scissors. The giant scissors once again search for prey. A trail of terror stretches across Europe, from Norway to England.
Here it is, the Barrows Mansion. We have to go there and look around, or we'll never solve the mystery of Scissornet.
You've got to be joking. It's way too dangerous.
As long as he's alive, we're not safe anywhere, guys.
One after another, the horrifying murders continue.
That's fair, Ben. We're not going to be going for much longer anyway. Not doing a full playthrough of this.
We'll make it through this.
Appreciate you sticking around with us. I hope you enjoyed the Koudelka playthrough.
Clock.
And we'll catch you next time. Take care, man. It's weird that this game was released in the West, because, like, it is very much a sequel to Clock Tower. And, like, they had the option to release Clock Tower 1 in the West. But they didn't. So the West gets this game, part 2, missing important parts of the first game. Like, it's surprising this ever happened. Like, this ever came out in the West. You can tell it's a fucking PS1 game, though.
Professor Barton? Professor Barton? Professor Barton? What on earth are you doing, Professor? You mustn't hypnotize her like this. She's not ready to remember the murders yet.
Helen, the Clock Tower murders are fascinating research material for me. I must know the truth of what happened.
She can't take any more of this today, Professor. I'm taking her home.
All right. But remember one thing, Helen. You may be her guardian, but you are also my assistant.
Yes, Professor.
That sounds like the kind of line somebody would give you just before you say, okay, I quit. So this is Clock Tower 2. And, like, it's weird, it's janky. It's kind of fascinating. It's not a pretty game, even by PS1 standards. There's a faint smell of ammonia. Has Helen been pissing in my cupboards again? Anyway. It's, like, even as point-and-click adventure games go, it's a weird idea to have a point-and-click interface in a 3D environment where the camera will move around. The only other game I'm aware of doing it might be Grim Fandango. The movement of the mouse is way too loose. Like, it's hard to choose specific things you want to look at. And, like, most of the time, it'll snap to items that can be interacted with, but when two items are close together like this, it can be hard to pick the one that you're actually after. Where is that printer noise coming from? There are no printers in here. If you're into this kind of thing, it is pretty interesting. But, like, even at the time, this was not a good looking game. It wasn't a game that played particularly great with this 2D interface over 3D environments. In the way of science. Nothing more than another research subject. She's not a person. Yeah, you know what? We're moving off there. Clock Tower, this Clock Tower stream has just been, like, absolutely full of endlessly repeating noises, and I don't want to deal with it anymore. I feel like the camera is... There we go. But yeah, that's gonna do it for Clock Tower, I guess. Yeah, it's starting to get me a bit. Yeah, that's gonna do it for Clock Tower, I guess. I'll see about... I had ideas for, like, bonus games for filling the time up if we didn't make it to the end of October anyway. So I'll pull some of those out. I had a few ideas anyway. Yes, we get one of those to make up for this. not doing all of Clock Tower. Well, Koudelka's done. I'm confident that we'll finish Silent Hill 4 next session. Like, that should be good. Like, look forward to that. And after that, we'll be starting Until Dawn on PS4, which I've done about an hour of. I've not finished it. So I hope everybody looks forward to that. I'm quite looking forward to it. Until Dawn and The Sinking City. I hope everybody looks forward to them. But yeah, in the meantime, that's going to do it for today's stream. I want to thank everybody for joining the stream. I always really appreciate the support. A special thank you to everybody in the chat. Chat is always the best part of the stream. Bane, Clem, Magic, Ninja, Mir, Dibs, Snow, Amanda, I think that was everybody. Oh, and Cat, of course. How could we forget legendary streamer Fox and Cat? Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Chat is always the best part of the stream. I think we'll take tomorrow off. We'll be back on Sunday. Check real. We should be back on Sunday anyway, because I'm due to do more Final Fantasy VI with Clint. Make sure of that. Yeah, so that should be fun. Yeah, so take a break tomorrow, back on Sunday, continuing the critical discussion of Final Fantasy VI with Clem. I hope everybody looks forward to that. It should be more fun. We are going to be infiltrating Vector, at the heart of the Empire. I hope that's not the entire stream. But, like, if there's one thing we learned doing Final Fantasy VII, especially when we can get like, very sidetracked with conversations, like, you can never predict how long these things are going to take, even with games that you've done before. Because, like, Final Fantasy VII, like, it felt like a lot of stuff took us longer to do than we expected, and then some stuff we got done really quick. So it's hard to predict how long this will. My hope is Vector done, Esper World done. Start heading towards the end of the World of Balance, really. Maybe get to the dinner scene. But, like, it's entirely possible all we'll get done is Vector. You can never predict these things. But yeah, pretty much it. Back on Sunday, more of that. And then Monday, the conclusion of Silent Hill 4. So, definitely look forward to that. Rebel yesterday took a clip of Silent Hill 4, which was pretty good, of us just stamping Walter in the nuts. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you check it out because it's great. And remember, that guy's the main villain. Chasing us with a gun and a stick, and I knocked him down and stamped on his nuts, and then just left the room. Remember that. Check it out. Remember that. Hey, how you doing, Flame? We're just saying goodbye. You've come in right at the end, Flame. Walter Sullivan, the villain of Silent Hill 4. Thanks for shouting Flame out, Ninja. Much appreciated. Wasn't your birthday yesterday? Was that today? How long has this stream been going? That was James Sullivan. We're dealing with Walter Sullivan. His evil human brother. The funny thing is, this is probably like the shortest stream we've done this week. It's almost 4 hours. I remember when I was doing like 2-hour streams? Those will probably come back, actually. Yeah, everybody's celebrating Ninja's birthday. I'm glad you enjoyed Koudelka, Ninja. I hope you get to be there for the conclusion of Silent Hill 4. It's going to be on Monday. So look forward to that. And then Tuesday, I guess, will be the beginning of Until Dawn. Should be good. I enjoyed the story of Koudelka. We enjoyed the story well enough. It was compelling. The characters were interesting. It was engaging. It's just the gameplay was garbage. But like, if I wasn't interested in it in some way, we wouldn't have played it all the way through. But we did it. We did it. We got the got both the good ending and the canon ending. So we can start Shadow Hearts at any time now, which is nice. Yeah. Yep, R.I.P. James. He was born and died in the 1800s, Flame. But yeah, Silent Hill 4, The Room, hopefully the conclusion on Monday. Until Dawn, probably on Tuesday. On Sunday, more of the critical discussion of Final Fantasy. Hope everybody's looking forward to all of that. Still to come in Horrorween, we have The Sinking City, Condemned Criminal Origins, Alone in the Dark, Inferno, and Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. I still need to get the save file for that. Off the Wii U. Wait now. Yeah. Anyway, pretty much it. So, nothing else to say really, except thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic time of day, and take care. Catch you next time, guys. Bye.